Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 3 of Uncanny X-Men From the Ashes, written by Gail Simone and art by David Marquez. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. The scene opens with a close-up of a restrained man, a close-up of Charles seated in a mutant prison. His thoughts reveal the struggle he's enduring, despite all of his training and discipline. He finds himself still being tested as the world's most powerful mind now has no outlet and is forced to consume itself in the confines of isolation. And to make things worse, Charles is now experiencing hallucinations that lead him to believe he was smelling wildflowers and the earthy scent of a hillside after the rain. Yet, these sensory memories, which once brought him comfort, now only bring pain. The sweet aroma he remembers turns to the rot and decay of despair, akin to the aftermath of a cataclysm. Suddenly, a voice intrudes his mind, asking for a penny for his thoughts. The voice is familiar, yet Charles struggles to comprehend its presence. His disbelief is written on his face, because he once believed this to be impossible. Now this voice was revealed as Sarah, and in a playful tease, she suggested she could rescue him. And then went on to ask about the whereabouts of Charles's children because, up to this point, she couldn't find them. Following that panic, Charles went on to say, whatever she might believe, this conflict is between just them. She calls for silence and then asks him if he misses those dear to him. Her words twist the knife, promising that wherever they are, she will find them. The final panel shows Charles alone, still seated in his chair, isolated in his prison, as Sarah vows to turn his loved ones away from him, a threat that hangs heavy in the air. Following that, we transition back to the large Southern-style mansion. When we get there, Rogue narrates and reflects on the bayou roads and sounds of the night, recalling how this family took them in when their own friends and family were unreachable. Then we see Rogue lying in bed, wrapped in the comfort of a home that smells like someone's mom had prepared it. She remarks to herself that while it might not be her mom's, she wouldn't trade the bed for anything. And despite having a place in town, they decided to stay there because the owners of this home decided to take in the orphans. And if Rogue was being honest, that was how they all felt right now. So with that out there, Rogue slipped out of the room and made her way into the hallway, and then eventually found herself downstairs in the kitchen, just to see Logan having a drink of tequila. And during their conversation, Rogue tells Logan that her head still hurts from the battle they had last night, to which Wolverine responds by saying he just got done checking on the kids, and while he checked on them, he found out that the tall one is sleeping, like he used to sleeping rough. The gal with the stopwatch also seems to be okay, but sleeps messy. The horse girl is sleeping in the barn. And finally, Manga Kid is sleeping in a cemetery. So with everyone accounted for, Rogue brings up how the kid in the hospital predicted all of this. But with that said, Wolverine also reminded her that the kid also predicted that one of the 4 kids they are currently watching was going to destroy mutant kind. Now Wolverine's explanation of who they were made Rogue smile, because she went on to tell him that if he was going to be training them, then he better learn their names. And at that moment, Rogue realized, like a kick in the head, that Wolverine wasn't planning on staying. Now this pissed her off, because she went on to say that he knows they need him there. But to the contrary, Wolverine replied by saying that they don't need him, and on top of that something is off about him at this moment, because within him, everything feels wild. And because of that, he wants no one he cares about around him at this moment. So as Logan turns to leave, Rogue's parting words were for him to do whatever he needs to do, just as long as one day he returns home. So as Wolverine walked out of the home, Rogue sat at the table for what felt like forever and thought about how she was going to watch the kids. Now following that, we fast forward a bit to where Rogue's new team is having a meeting in the front of the house. And as they sat there, the owner went on to say there is 3 rules. 1 is everyone has chores. 2, everyone cooks, and 3, everyone cleans. And then following that, he went on to introduce his wife Alice and his daughter Chelsea, and at that moment, Rogue gets a small feeling about the daughter, which I think is going to play a part later on in the story. But anyway, we transition back to the prison. And when we get there, we see the guard telling the warden that Sarah escaped from her cell and is now missing. Now, as you may have guessed, this pissed the warden off, because, despite their state-of-the-art security system, Sarah was able to walk out of her cell with no one noticing. And at that moment, Dr. Ellis interrupted them and stated that he thought he knew where they were going. Because he believes correctly that Sarah is going after and is going to try to murder Charles's kids. With that out of the way, we then jump back to our heroes after a long day at work around the farm, and once they was done, Rogue took the team down into a makeshift danger room. But before they could get started with their training, Rogue lets them know that they will have to tell them about themselves before training. And as for their training, it is fairly straightforward, and that is that they will have to get the belt from Nightcrawler. And as soon as he arrived on the scene, the horse girl called him a goblin just like her mother would. So with the keys to victory handed over to the ever-elusive Kurt, the challenge was on. And first up to the plate was watch girl Sophia aka Jitter, and as soon as it started, she activated her watch and said advanced parkour and was off to the races. And as she raced up the structure with crazy speed, she was moments away from catching Kurt when we got her backstory. When she was a kid, Jitter was always having trouble in school. And one day during a test, Jitter managed to complete the whole exam before the teacher could even say start. Now this right here didn't earn her any points in the rest of the students' eyes, because every day the group of girls would beat her up out of jealousy. But little did they know, Jitter had a special power that made her an expert in anything for 1 minute. And at this moment, Jitter just so happened to want to know how to defend herself. And in a shocking twist, Jitter beat the heck out of the girls. And it was so bad that the leader of the group could no longer walk. So with Jitter's story explained, next up was Valentine, and right out the gate, he grabbed hold of Kurt. But that was short-lived, for after a quick bamf, Kurt was right behind him and able to deliver a kick right to his back. So with that out there, Valentine aka Ransom revealed that when he was born the nurse screamed because they couldn't detect a heartbeat. And at that moment, the x-rays they did on him revealed that he didn't have a heart at all. Now his parents were wealthy and vain, so his imperfections shamed them. So one day, when he was kidnapped, his own family refused to pay the ransom. So out of anger, the kidnappers shot him 14 times, but the bullets went straight through him and made him stronger and able to free himself. So at the young age of 13, Ransom ran away, because he learned it was better to belong to nothing than to belong where one aren't wanted. Following the second character backstory, we see Gambit point out how strong they are, to which Jubilee points out that they are indeed strong, but the only problem is that they don't work together. But see, that was to be expected, because according to Rogue, the whole world was their danger room. With 2 down, the next one up was Becca, and she arrived on the scene in fashion as her horse Ember erupted in flames. So with Kurt knocked off balance, we immediately jump into her backstory. And the first thing we learn about her is that she doesn't really know how to talk to people. And right off the bat, we learn that she is a liar with mother issues, due to no fault of her own. Because in the flashback, she states that her mother wrapped her in love every day to protect her from the world. To the point where she had no TV, no films, no music, and said those things would only hurt her, but the only problem was that her mother wasn't truly there. In fact, the only things she did have were her books and best friend Ember. Until one night, Becca woke up to the smell of smoke, and due to her upbringing she didn't shout as she was taught. So without missing a beat, Becca went to the stables and saved her friend, Ember, and disappeared into the night. Now with yet another story down, the manga kid managed to get behind our blue friend and scare the heck out of him, and in a burst of black energy, he picked Nightcrawler off his feet. And during his flashback, we learn that this kid's name is Hataru, and during his story, we learn that he discovered his arrival from his mother after her death. Now he was stillborn because his umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck, but somehow they revived him. And 3 more times he died that night until eventually, he was able to revive himself. But when he was dead, he dreamed of being alive, but when he was alive, he thought only of death. And as another side effect of his power, he is never alone. Now with all 4 stories out there, we pick back up in the current day with Hataru going too far, for he had Kurt dead to rights as he attempted to choke the life out of him. So as Nightcrawler struggled to catch his breath, Rogue called out for him to let him go, but still Hataru refused, until Rogue stepped in and punched him right in the face. And almost instantly, Hataru snapped out of a trance and started to apologize, because he really didn't mean it. So with everyone distracted by the events that were playing out, Becca managed to just pick up the belt and take home the win for her team. Now with training done for the day, we jump over to Wolverine grabbing a ride from a trucker to a wooded area. And once he was there, we learn that this is literally in the middle of nowhere, with no cell phone signal nor people as far as the eye can see. So with emptiness before him, Wolverine went off deep into the woods and started to attempt to find peace. But that was short-lived, because Wolverine noticed someone behind him, but strangely enough, Logan didn't smell nor hear the individual. But see, this wasn't any fault of his own, because Sarah didn't want him to. Because according to her, not all hunters leave a footprint. So with the fight about to break out, Wolverine popped his claws and stood ready as Sarah jumped toward him. And as they fought, Sarah asked if he ever thought someone from her realm would ever make an answer to his claws. For her nails are forged from the melted blades of murderers and is named Somber Steel. And then she went on to say, if you listen closely, then one can hear the screams of the victims. So with Wolverine down bad, Sarah just beat the heck out of him as she asked for the location of the kids. But then with all his might, Logan mustered up a counterattack, but it was once again short-lived as Sarah caught him mid-air, and out of nowhere, Logan's voice called out and said, I'm in the dark, and it ain't going to get any lighter where he is going, and before his connection was cut, Wolverine stated that Rogue has to get away from the kids. Then following that, on the last few panels Rogue cries out in pain, and when everyone asks what was wrong, Rogue simply responds by saying Wolverine is dying. And with that said, this issue comes to an end. But anyway, down in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.